Yeah. Welcome to the Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Arts Bar Podcast. This is the second episode we're doing in 2024 and we have changed venue.
We have. We're now sat in front of the famous Hope Street mural wall.
Yeah. Our first baby.
Yes, definitely. It is the baby, isn't it?
It is the baby.
People always ask that question, what's your favourite? And I imagine it's like choosing between kids, but maybe not as much.
It's strange because I think like you do a night, like you might come up here on like a Saturday night and you'll go, oh, do you know what? No, this is my favourite.
I reckon it's the same answer as well. Like parents give, like they're different. They're different. They're not the same. They both have qualities.
Yeah.
And both of them have issues.
Yeah.
I reckon it is like choosing between your kids. If you've got kids and you listen, please message us and let us know if it's the same. Because usually our answer is like that, like, oh, it depends really. Depends what day it is.
Depends what it is. And speaking of which, we are actually in the daytime at Hope Street.
We are. It's a grey August morning though. And not very nice outside.
Last time we were talking about drinking pints.
Yeah, we had a beer together.
We might have mentioned that we drank 10 pints quite regularly.
Yeah.
And we had to apologise to our mothers afterwards.
Yeah.
So, what have we gone for today?
Well, I've gone for a standard cappuccino, which is what I usually go for, which if you can see, it's that often that there's an A in it. There's an A in chocolate on the top of the cappuccino. Now, the more interesting thing is, Wilson, what is it that you've gone for?
So, I don't know what this is. But apparently everyone's drinking it nowadays.
We actually had a team meeting not long ago talking about new drinks that we were bringing in and things like that. And someone said, can we start to sell matcha? Now, Wilson, as you can hear by his gruffly Yorkshire voice, he sticks regularly to Yorkshire tea. Very strong. Not much milk.
With oat milk.
Leave bagging.
Oat milk, though.
You do have oat milk, yeah. You do have oat milk.
I'm a changed man.
Now, this is very new for him. So, can you give it a whirl?
I'm going to give it a whirl.
I think there's a blueberry syrup right at the bottom there as well, so you might just get a load of syrup. Did you?
Yeah.
All right, give it a stir.
Give it a stir.
Nice, though.
What is it? What is matcha?
Well, I don't actually know. I think if you can message in and give us a breakdown of what matcha is, I think it's green tea extract, but it does taste like grass.
It tastes like you've just left the tea leaves in the bottom. But not in a bad way.
It's, yeah, I've had it before. It tasted like grass is the only thing I can say. Freshly cut grass. But, yeah,
it's not
I
bad.
think it's green tea extract.
I know my face is saying otherwise, but it's not that bad. The blueberry syrup helps. Is
Helps.
this on the menu now?
It is, yeah,
Is
yeah.
it? It's delicious. Come and try it, guys. Open from 10 a.m. every day.
Yeah. I've gone for a simple and classic cappuccino.
Cheers, man.
Keep the chocolate up my lips for the podcast.
Al's got this thing where whenever he drinks cappuccino, he'll have like a little bit of chocolate.
A chocolate moustache.
All day, yeah.
And my dad works in the Baltic, and like we couldn't be enough like each
Just
other
the same,
anyway.
yeah.
And if I'm in the Baltic and he's in the Baltic, we walk in, we've both got this chocolate moustache.
Yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
But one of them.
One of them, yeah. So I wanted to start today. Do you know what? I really enjoyed kind of starting this up again. I think it really makes you reflect on things. And actually, we talked about setting up a new venue last time, but actually I wanted to, before we get jokey and silly, I wanted to just talk about like where we kind of started this journey. Now, we don't have to go into great detail about it all, but I think it's quite interesting to just reflect on some of the stuff that we've done previous to having venues, because it really set the kind of path on of what we're doing now.
I think it's me and you go into the universities each year, don't we, at the start of the year and do a talk, and we talk about being entrepreneurial but as a creative, and I think that me and you constantly go back to the fact that this was born out of the fact that we were both jobbing creatives, and we actually met at uni together. So Tom was a third year student when I joined John Moore's. We both studied drama, both wanted to be actor, musicians, and I wanted to make my own theatre. Tom wanted to sort of be involved in productions and MD as well as perform. And we always talk, don't we, about how we took different approaches to similar but different in terms of we both wanted to be busy all the time, but I wanted to do it myself and work like set my own company up, write my own shows, that sort of thing. Whereas you worked with everyone, so you met loads of people who were putting stuff on. Whether you want to shout them out in this, like the likes of Carl Cochran and
it kind of all started with that crew. I mean, there was a company on Hope Street when we left university called Hope Street Limited, and they really developed kind of like natural talent. So a lot of it was based around street theatre, but actually within that you had a lot of music, you had a lot of puppetry, you had a lot of straight acting, you had some stuff, and everyone that came out of that course were the people in the city that were doing the interesting stuff. So Carl at the time was doing a show at the Unity, and I kind of managed to get a bit part on that and work a little bit with that, and that was quality.
Well, you did all this whilst studying, didn't you? So whilst you were currently studying,
and
you were also doing extracurricular like professional jobs.
Yeah, and I think the one that we met on was properly outside of like the university and stuff and whatever we were doing then was the stuff at the Albert Dock with Paula Sims on the Zebra.
Yeah.
And I think they're bringing
it back. The River
back.
Festival,
Yeah, I think they're bringing it back. I believe Sue, who owned the ship at the time, that's now sadly sunk.
It did sink, yeah.
It did sink. Well, she's bringing another one over from Sweden, and the idea is to start a similar thing again.
So I think I must have been a first year or second year. You might have even... You'd been a third year and then just graduated when you took part in that. But that was all about the history of Liverpool's docks and the Merchant Navy and stuff like that, wasn't it? And the history of and what the Merchant Navy brought to the city.
It was cool because we essentially animated the Albert Dock with
like it was that time.
Yeah. And that involved loads of music. I mean, loads of kind of small acting parts that you could be a part of that we kind of managed to get families involved.
So almost promenade piece, wasn't it? It wasn't like I think if you weren't to just stand and watch it for 15 minutes and just actually you were just passing through, you'd get a similar story to what you would get if you just stood and watched it.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of ended with them big set pieces on the ship.
Yeah.
Invited people to come and look at the ship, and it was really good. I think what it did was it exercised all our skills as performers and going, you've got to make this interesting to the general public. You've got to be able to think on your feet.
Yeah.
And you've got to work as a team to kind of sell that story. And, we met so many great people through doing that.
100%.
Performers or not.
So that's going back to that university thing.
I'm going to have another dip.
Go on, have a little swig of your matcha. So that's the thing that I think when we go into universities and talk, the important thing that we talk about is that you can do more than just be here studying. And obviously the going out, and we didn't hold back on that side of things. But Tom was always doing extracurricular stuff in terms of getting involved in people's projects and meeting people. Like, I'd say that your networking skills were amazing when you were a student. I think most people wouldn't have thought you were a student. It was just like, oh yeah, it's Tom, he's an actor on the scene in Liverpool. Whereas I went down a route of, me and a friend wrote a show, a couple of shows, and we just booked. At the time, the Lantern was the theatre that was like grassroots and ran by Margaret and Siobhan, who are amazing in the city now. And that theatre was so important to young creatives trying things out. I remember they did this deal with us where it was, I think it was like £90 a night. It was amazing how affordable it was, with a full rig, full like black box theatre, and they did a deal with us where we wrote a new show and we did 2 nights, and they never charged us anything until our tickets come out. So no money up front, you weren't skint or anything like that. And they just sort of encouraged you to take the risk and try things out. So I remember whilst studying, so in my second year and third year, we were writing shows, putting them on, going to different places and putting events on. And we ended up...
That was quality in terms of the risks you were taking at the time. Like, I remember you kind of managed to galvanise quite a big group of people that bought into listen, we can do this on our own. We don't need to rely on other things. I think that was a big thing. And risky material in some respects, like stuff that's not necessarily commercial. No. But stuff that you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was stuff that we'd found entertaining or, things that amused us. And we were just like, surely other people will want to watch this. And I remember we went, The Lantern, And then at the time, this was what was amazing, was we went to the Lantern and put the show on, and the people from the Unity came to watch it at the Lantern, and then we put it on in the Unity 3 months later, and then we took it to the Fringe, and we were like 20, 21, but like we just took the risks, and without taking the risks, it would have never happened. And then the Fringe, you sort of learn so many more things.
Did you do the show you took to the Fringe? Did you do that in Liverpool? Did you just do it once in Liverpool, or did you do a couple of runs of it?
No, so we did 2 nights at the Lantern, and then we did a Fringe version at the Unity.
Like a shortened down version.
Yeah, so the original one was like an hour and a half, and then we did like a 55-minute version.
Straight through.
Yeah, at the Unity. And that was like, say, May. So with the first one, or April, so the first one was in January, the next one was in April, and then we did a couple of fundraisery type things, and then went to Fringe in August. But it was like, we just took a punt on it, and we're like, let's try it. And actually, without those venues, like without that first venue of the Lantern going, like, it's not going to cost you anything until you sell some tickets. Yeah. That's unreal. Like, I'm literally walking around going, we've got nothing to lose here. We've literally got nothing to lose, and we can put this on and people can come and see it. And then if you don't do that, then it doesn't happen. And I think, obviously, me and you met when I was a first year, Tom's a third year. We have these funny stories where we actually lived in the same building, but not in a student, like, it wasn't in halls, was it? It was in a flat.
It was a flat, yeah. It was a big old Georgian house, really, wasn't it? Yeah. It was divided into flats.
And Tom and his gang lived in the basement, and my gang lived on the ground floor. And we were first years and they were third years. And sometimes there's Joanne from the annex, the pen factory, the famous Joanne. So we lived in the same building. We lived on the ground floor. He lived in the basement. We were first years. You were third years. So obviously sometimes Tom would be doing his dissertation and we'd be having parties and they weren't very happy, or they'd be doing really important projects. And then other times they got involved and enjoyed the parties, and they also had wilder parties than us, and we'd get dragged downstairs. And but that's when we first met, was living in the same building. And then we sort of drifted apart, didn't we? After you'd graduated, you went off and did different projects. And like we're saying, I went down a route of, I'm going to put my own stuff on. You went and worked with loads of different people. And I remember we went to the Fringe, come back, and I'd just fallen in love with, and I'd never done the networking side of things and the meeting different people and working with different people on projects. And I remember coming back and being like, I need to meet as many people as I can in Liverpool and get involved in different projects. And I remember Tom Galash was working on, what was a piece in Chantel's?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called. It was at the Everyman.
It was a Luke Barnes piece at the Everyman. Was it part of Yep Festival, or was it?
Yeah, so Chantel was Yep Directors.
Yeah.
Which is a young Everyman and Playhouse scheme.
Which we both ended up doing at different times with the fantastic Tomo and Matt, who sort of there was another level to sort of graduating and getting this another push to try things out, take risks, and meet new people and new actors, writers, producers.
What drew me to that one in particular was that it was a local writer that was doing the piece, and that someone had gone, I'm going to use a local writer. And I think the script...
Well, you do the music for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tom Galash, if you're listening, for those who don't know, I lived with him at the time. He was the main actor in it. You did the music for it, so I was obviously like, you were coming into the flat to do music for it and readings, and then we sort of linked up again. But actually, I've missed an important one out there, haven't I? We actually both worked in hospitality. So I'd left uni and both worked in hospitality. And you worked in Marboyles for the brilliant Ian Hoskins, which was another sort of opportunity that you had come your way, wasn't it? In terms of a different world, not art.
And it was interesting because Ian set up like a couple of businesses, but was also a jobbing actor. Yeah. So I kind of looked into that world that we're in now, I suppose, of still trying to stay connected to the arts, but also creating a business out of it. And he had Mar Edgerton's, which was directly linked to the stage door at the Empire. So they'd get loads of like after show parties, they'd have loads of like celebrity quizzes. And what I found interesting was how he managed to merge some of his contacts that he had through acting into the hospitality side of things. And
there was a very similar to here, where we have everyone's creative, that those people that worked in Marboyles, Edgertons, they were all sort of creatives
Where
as well.
I met Naomi Campbell,
Yeah.
the musician.
Not the model. Yeah, so we both worked in hospitality. Tom worked in Marboyles and I worked in Omi or My. And I remember we were doing a wedding one night and we needed ice and we'd run out of ice. So I was sent to look around the nearby bars to ask if anyone had any ice. And I went to Marboyles and Tom was behind the bar. And I was like, oh, hi mate, you okay? I'm chatting away about what we were up to. And I'd just started the Arts Society.
That's right.
And you were like, I've seen the thing that you started doing. It's interesting. And then we ended up having a chat. I ended up taking ages to bring the ice back. And we had a chat and about what we were both doing and stuff like that. And then after that, we ended up meeting up and talking about how actually what we'd both like is to have a venue where it was a pub, because we both worked in hospitality. It was a bar, and we could put events on and do gigs and shows and things like that, and have a little black box theatre above it. And that's what we both talked about after this pint. And then we ended up meeting up loads when Tom was doing the show with you. And then you got involved with what we were doing in terms of, like you said, we'd got a big group of people to go, let's put stuff on.
We had a meeting, didn't we? And there was like 10 of us that all kind of studied together or had worked together since. It was like, look, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And there's got to be a way that we can link what you were doing with the Art Society into more of a kind of production company. Because at the start, it was a network.
Yeah. So I remember the very first one was in the Lantern. Again, taking a risk on them taking a chance on putting something on. And it was a speed dating event, and it was about just trying to meet new creatives in the hope that... I remember being in Edinburgh, and I met a graphic designer, a musician that was like, we'd had a drink, and one night we were going to do a show where he was going to do the music for it. And the graphic designer was going to do all the art for it. And I remember coming back and being like, I've never worked like that before. I've always gone, I'm going to make the poster, I'm going to do the music, I'm going to do the direction. And then coming back and being like, wow, there's other people that are super talented and like-minded. And I was just passionate about trying to meet as many people as possible. So those events were like speed dating type events. We did them in the Lantern, then unfortunately the Lantern shut. So I was working at the time in Tribeca, that was the famous bar on Berry Street that, you know, if there's one bar that could come back to Liverpool, I'm sure that'd be one of the top of the list for many people. And we started doing them upstairs on like a Thursday night, and they were just, again, speed dating, networking events, some talks from different people. And then we ended up having a chat.
Yeah, and I think it was about tying everything together and doing one or a number of big events.
I remember your thing was like, great, you're building this network now, but why don't we use everyone to put stuff on? So like the next step was to then go from actually just chatting to each other about ideas and things like that, and then you go in, why don't we just use everyone in the network to put something on, which then started our first few events, didn't it?
Yeah, and the idea was that we were going to put music on, sell artwork, and kind of have a night off. There's stuff going on, but you can come and meet like-minded people and enjoy the night just as if it was a night out.
Yep.
But you might get some out of it, or you might meet someone that you haven't met before, or you might be introduced to someone that I knew and you didn't know, or whatever. And then I think we realised that actually it was really difficult in that setup to do like any performance, like theatre performance or even comedy. So we went, okay, well, how can we expand that again? And then it was, well, let's theme some of these. So let's do the same idea, but let's theme it. So I think the first one we did was Prohibition.
Yeah, so like it going from so like Tom getting involved was going from turning them from networking events into actually you come and network, but you're going to have a sort of an open mic style event where someone does some music, someone does some comedy, someone does some poetry, someone does a monologue. And then they actually started getting like artistically framed a bit more, didn't they, in terms of, because we realised that the monologue on stage, whilst it's a full pizzeria and a bar, doesn't really work, doesn't fit the vibe. So actually going, there's going to be a monologue upstairs in the corner over there, or putting it in the toilet or at the toilet door, or doing something from bouncers and it being by the front door, was actually going like...
Did we do that in the end?
Yeah. We did different...
did we do the bouncers thing though?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we did as well.
We did. So it was actually then framing it a little bit. And I think that comes with growing and learning from different events, doesn't it? And going, right, actually the more spoken wordy type stuff doesn't work, but the music, people will sit and eat and drink and listen. And as well as sort of talking to each other. But the actual performance-y type stuff, we need to be in a quiet area, or actually you go into that specific area to listen
just
to it.
Just more focused on it. Like, it doesn't work if people are chatting, whereas music can work when people are chatting.
And then we had people putting stalls up for art, and actually what it became was like multi-platform art events where you had people selling artwork, people doing theatre bits, music, photography, that sort of stuff. So, and then, like you said, then the next step then was to then go, right, how do we frame this even more? And actually then it runs with a theme. So we then, through your links with Graham and Heebie-Jeebies, another person that took a risk and took a chance on
You wanted to
stuff.
take more risk than we did.
Yeah. I was actually telling someone about this the other day. But we ended up having a meeting with Heebies, and they said, come here and do in the basement, use the basement as a sort of theatre. And put stuff on, and the first one we did was a Prohibition style event. So we used all the actors that were doing the bits on the sort of in the certain stages in Tribeca. We used bands that were doing the music. We had people selling artwork out of suitcases and things like that. So it was still this like multi-platform art event, but it was a bit more structured, scripted, with a story to it.
And it appealed to people that wouldn't necessarily go to the one that we were doing at Tribeca, because we kind of build it as an art event, whereas this we build as a night out that was...
Yeah.
Do you know what as well? It's quite common now to have like themed nights out.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily a massive thing. And not saying that we just stumbled across it because it was the best way that we could go, how do we get everything in and make it appealing? Basically to make some money as well. Like, it wasn't just... You kind of, at one point you start going, we need to start to make this feasible, financially feasible, or at least pay for itself.
It was, but also have some creative license and feel like that we were putting a show on, which I think was what me and Tom wanted to get back to. Was we want to be putting shows on. We don't want to just host an open mic type thing. We want to use all this and be as creative as we can with it. So the first one was a Prohibition night. And actually, like, from start to finish, I actually found a script in my pocket of a blazer the other day where I was clearing stuff out. And there was some scenes. And so basically we went to look around Heebie's basement, and the first idea was to do a Prohibition night. And they had this little secret room at the back. Obviously, if you've been in EBGBS, again, we had the big stage area, bar area, another sort of quieter bar space, and then this secret room at the back by the toilets. So we decided... we were going to have actors roaming the space all night, and actually a lot of the scripted stuff went into the pre-event, didn't it? So like the videos we were putting out sort of told the story before people had got there, and it was about this speakeasy ran by a guy called Jimmy White, and it was everyone's invited to come to the speakeasy, but it's a secret, and the whole night you're sort of locked in, and the police are coming to sort of break the doors down and find out where, you know, where the barrels of rum were, and close the party down. So we were putting these videos out. So that was also already like giving us a bit of creative license. And then we put the events on, and it was like 10 to 15 actors roaming the space. People were coming dressed up, as in like punters were coming dressed up. And then we had this little secret room at the back where we were doing just one-to-one performance, and it was like we'd take one person and say, "Oh, come and help us move this barrel," and then they get taken into a secret room, and actually they'd stumble across a person with a body in a bin bag, and you'd take the body out to the bins, and you'd help the wise guys do different jobs throughout the night, and different people had different experiences, didn't they? And we just loved that. I think I really enjoyed that one-to-one performance, and seeing people leave going, "Oh, I've just done that," and their mates didn't believe them, but...
And hearing the stories afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the people that have been to the event then wanting to get involved in the next one
and
be part of it. Like be either like stooges or come to some of the rehearsals that we did. Because the rehearsals were a funny thing as well. Like they were
always like 20 strangers, really, wasn't it?
It was nice. And like we're still really good friends. And sometimes like people are now still partners from meeting doing them rehearsals. And it was like, the idea was, we're not going to teach you how to act. We're not going to teach you how to do it. We're going to teach you how to react to each other and to the scenario that you've been put in. So develop your character individually and then bring it to the room. Yeah. Like, we're not too bothered about the tale all the way through, but we want to know how you can react in a room. I remember doing some of the like crowd interaction stuff where we'd fake being punters and you had to react to anything that we threw at you.
Yeah.
And that was
a lot of improv, really, wasn't it? And we weren't sort of like, I wouldn't say I had like massive improv training.
Yeah.
I think I did one module on it in uni, but it wasn't like, it was to improvise a piece and like, you know, on a stage, not improvise with someone that's not in the show with you.
Yeah.
And I think we got quite good at it in the end.
It was good. I think it was also a way of us kind of safeguarding actors a bit. Like everyone worked in pairs. Everyone had like an out. So like if you weren't feeling it and you need to get away from it.
You said something and the other person knew that was... Yeah.
Let's get them out. Let's get them to... We had like a dressing room that was like the safe space. That was really interesting. I think it made everyone feel comfortable. And because when you're doing stuff that's larger than life in a normal setting, look, we all know the general public and it's midnight, it's in a club. We just had to make sure that we were safeguarding the best we could.
Our job then become that, didn't it? We were less performers in the shows and more actually running the event and looking and watching and making sure everyone was okay, making sure the story was going to plan. But yeah, it was... I mean, that one was super fun. When you talk about the rehearsals there, like, so when we sort of, after this meeting me and Tom had about what we're doing next with this networking thing, our big thing was that we needed a space. So we needed a room to work from that we could just use as like, to be as creative as we wanted. So we ended up
store all our tat that we in. Just like build up.
So we ended up getting a space above the Invisible Wind Factory, didn't we?
And it was had it just opened? Had it been open?
I think so. I think it just
maybe like 6 months.
Yeah. So it was one of the studios above the Wind Factory, and we took this room on as a rehearsal room, and we called it our creative space, didn't we? And it was accessible 24 hours a day. And we went, and there was 8 of us.
8, 10.
I think there was 8. And basically we all split the rent. So we all paid X amount a month to rent this space, and sort of shared the space to do our own projects, but also work together on these big ones that we're doing in Hebes and stuff like that. And then it was this big, like, the roof's like a tin roof, and it was upstairs above the Wind Factory, and it was cold.
It's Nan's house now, which if you want to look on
it's
Instagram,
what?
Nan's house.
Is it the studio?
The recording studio. Yeah. If you want to look now, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
It didn't look amazing.
No.
The guys had just opened, and it was all still developing.
Yeah.
That's what we kind of fell in love with, really, was we're part of something that's growing.
Yeah.
And look, it's cold, and it's got a hole in the roof.
But it was exactly what we needed at the time. And it was just a space to sort of try things out. That no one else our age and our group, like in our groups, had. And it was like, they've got their own room where they can go and do rehearsals and put stuff on and try ideas out and film musicians. And so we used to go there. I remember we used to finish work and go after work and stuff in the middle of the night, just because we wanted to try things out. But that's another group of people. Like, I think what I want to get to at the end of this is that there's a list of people that we took a risk, but they also took a risk on going, these guys seem like they want it. Yeah. And they sort of give us... So Invisible Wind Factory, another group to add to the list of, they could sort of see, I know what these guys are trying to do, cool, give us a chance. Back to the Hebe stuff. There's a fly going around my head here. Back to the Hebe stuff. So we did this first event, and I remember going, I was telling someone this story the other day. I remember going, we got called for a meeting the next week with Graham, who ran Hebes at the time. He's the brains behind the Jacaranda currently. They're doing absolutely amazing stuff.
We had an event a couple of weeks ago for the unveiling of the official plaque to say that the Beatles did their first gig there. That was again was a lovely full circle moment. I know we've had a few of these in last podcasts and stuff. And it's about going, this guy and Vesso and all his team behind him are really trying to kind of keep that scene alive and keep it cool and keep it relevant, but also give a nod to the past and go, we know where we've come from and we understand the importance of what's happened in the city over the last 60, 70, 80 years. And everybody who was anybody was at the unveiling. It was just, and we're all stood in the street having a beer,
it was
talking
cool.
about gigs that are coming up. It's just like, it was amazing, really, wasn't it? And we missed the unveiling, unfortunately.
We're still working. We've spent August tiling bathrooms and kitchens and knocking walls down. So,
Sorry.
We were finishing up tiling her bathroom and we got down as quick as we could. But Graham, we had this meeting with Graham and I remember it being like quite daunting and it was like Graham's asked to see her, and because we were working with Joe at the time, weren't we? And
I was good friends with Katie, who was managing at the time. So she was like, come and have a chat, honestly.
Graham wants to have a chat with you. So me and Tom went for this meeting and we were like, it was a bit daunting, wasn't it? I remember walking in being like, because we'd done a couple of things in that first event where it was like, can't really do that in a bar. And I remember turning up being like, he's going to tell us off for doing this, and he's going to tell us off for doing that. I remember walking in and he was like, amazing, I loved it, it was fantastic. And he is Flamboyant character and he's great. And he was like, the next one, let's get a motorbike down there. He was like, we'll get someone with fire, we'll do some fire breathing, we'll do this. And I was like, this guy's more excited about what we're doing than we were. He was like, yeah, you try this, next time we'll get someone to ride through on a Harley Davidson. He was so up for it. And it was just like a breath of fresh air to meet someone that was like, yeah, this is class, let's try this. And I always go back to that.
We went back to the group and we're like, right,
go bigger.
it's on here.
Yeah.
Like, let's stop worrying about, is it this? Does it make sense? It's not about that.
It's about having a good time.
Yeah, it's a sensory thing.
Yeah.
It's about getting involved and getting people to believe what you're doing is 100% what they want to do as well right now.
Yeah. So Graham, another person that was just like, yeah, let's do it, let's have it. So we ended up going on and doing about 5 or 6, maybe more. We did homecoming dance that was like a sort of Romeo and Juliet type event, but it was set in like a Greece like homecoming ball. We did Le Cirque Magnifique. That was the circus had come to town in Paris and a storm hits Paris and they all took refuge in the Moulin Rouge overnight. So you had these circus characters and Moulin Rouge and it was about to turn midnight on New Year's Eve and everyone's sort of partying together and doing their circus acts. And that was massively a Graham one, going like, yeah, let's get a load of circus acts in and do this. And they just got bigger and bigger. We did Sin City, that was a sort of murder mystery.
That was our like, how do we make it visually different from the rest? So the idea was low lighting. We toyed around with it trying to be in black and white, but we met with a makeup artist and they were like, doesn't work in black and white, like in real life. Have it blue and I'll highlight people's faces and it'll look as if the cartoon.
Jess Pickard, she's gone on to do, she's now working on like Netflix shows doing makeup for people, and one of their first jobs was she did like comic style sort of makeup, didn't she, on
quality,
people?
Man, it really worked.
And she did these amazing makeup, and it was a murder mystery type event for set in like a industrial world where it was a Sin City style.
Is that where we bought all those tyres?
Yeah, it was set in a. It was like set in like a dump, wasn't it? Like a scrapyard.
So we bought we bought a load of tyres, and the guy gave us loads of like old beer lines.
Yeah.
And said, "Do you want this?"
Yeah.
So we dressed it as he came into the basement. We dressed it all, so we had to kind of fight through a scrapyard.
Yeah, like post-apocalyptic type.
And Danielle as she played
the mob boss.
So we packed her out with like pillows.
Yeah.
She just sat drinking Jack Daniels.
There's some amazing pictures of that night. Yeah. Some amazing pictures. So we did, like Tom said, so that one was really focused on, me and him creatively wanted to focus on how it visually looked. So people coming in going, wow, this looks, the set's amazing, the characters all look totally different. The homecoming one was about the music, I'd say, and maybe the dance to the music, and was getting people involved in the sort of how people sort of behaved.
That had some of the best little scenes. So we carried on doing the secret scenes, but we had to get slightly more like creative with it. And my favourite was Andy doing the
coach.
The coach. So he was like the football coach, and he was doing the sex education class because someone had dropped out. Yeah, that was just quality.
But they were great. The Cirque Magnifique was about entertaining, and it was like the big fire breathers and circus acts type stuff.
We had set pieces to that, didn't we? So this is kind of where Ben had been on the fringes of it. So Ben wasn't initially part of the first like Invisible Wind Factory days. Always been a friend of mine, so like he was involved and he came to the nights. But then he was going, well, I could teach some basic choreography for you. He's a ballroom dancer. So I think we toyed with it in Prohibition, and he taught us a little bit of jive.
In Prohibition, him and 5 other dancers, so there's 3 partners.
That's right.
They
came to
piece,
do a flash mob.
Yeah.
And we were like, well,
we all want to do that. Yeah.
We want to do it. So next time he came and taught us some basic moves. And with the homecoming, he taught us some jive with, was it Magnifique where we did the waltz and we did like a big set piece, like a kind of...
No, it was a tango. It was
a tango.
Yeah, it was from Moulin Rouge, the tango from that. And then Sin City was a waltz, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And it was just trying to involve other art forms into it. And
so how can we do? And we had artists selling work. We had different artists designing sets with us and different things like that. So we had videographers working on each one. We had a photographer working on each one. Costume. So I mean, like each one was like, me and Tom would go and find all these people and go like, well, let's all work together on this project. And it was very much we've all trained, but there isn't a job for us in a theatre or anywhere at the moment. So let's do this in a nightclub. And it's a load of fun. And they were unreal, weren't they? Like, to meet people for one, the stories for two.
We defo built up a bit of a crew around us. And they allowed us to try things out without any pressure.
Yep.
I think tickets were like £3, £4, £5,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
It wasn't like we were just trying to cover the cost of some of the kind of sets and the costumes and buy everyone's drinks for the night. And it was very much like if we're all doing this out of kind of exploration and love rather than it trying to be a commercial product. I think if we'd have stuck with it and we'd started to commercialise it, I think we'd have probably got a little bit bored of it because actually that was the end product wasn't what we were after. It was the run up to it and the process and the meeting of people, and it was quite good for us to be able to have a focus point that we go, this is what we're doing, but this is the stuff that we need to do running up to it. It made us explore the space. It made us explore what we wanted to do and what was out there and what people enjoyed, and then it also kind of gave us that confidence to go, oh, actually we're all right at this and we can try stuff that's a little bit off the wall. Because I don't think there was much of that going on, was there? There was quite a lot of traditional theatre going on, which we loved being involved with, but it didn't necessarily like excite us in terms of creating it until we came to the end of doing this run of shows. Yeah. And we actually went, well, shall we put all this that we've learned into a theatre show?
Yeah. So in the meantime of doing these shows, so we'd been at the Wind Factory, we'd been doing stuff in Tribeca, like open mic style stuff. We'd gone to Hebe's and done these big events downstairs. We then started doing stuff in the Jacaranda on a Thursday night called the Underground Art Society. So obviously in the basement of this of the Jack. Each week we'd do a different event. So it'd be first one would be a gig. So it'd be like a single launch with someone. The next week would be an art class. The week after it'd be stand-up comedy. The week after that would be dance. Ben would teach Dance Little Liar. Would be like Ben would teach you a famous dance from a film. So like Pulp Fiction, everyone got to learn that dance. So each week was totally different, and it was a lot. That wasn't it, like planning the different events each week. But in the meantime, we'd moved from the Wind Factory to Hope Street. So we moved into a room above what is currently the bar, and had a big rehearsal room. So we were doing all the sort of rehearsals for stuff there, and we were also renting the room out to sort of generate income to put the events on, and then doing our Thursday nights as well as some like quizzes in Hebe's. So that was like, we then started to make the move into sort of commercial move where we had a job on a Monday, we rented the room out 7 days a week, and we had a gig on a Thursday, and then we had our big events that did ticket sales. So we started becoming this actual events company that had space that we rented out and stuff like that. So we'd become entrepreneurial.
Everything we despise.
No, but we were so keen. Me and Tom have always spoke about how it's got to stay afloat on its own. So if we got different funding pots, great, but it had to survive on its own. It had to survive on sort of generating income.
And we were getting sick of like the grind outside of this. We were going, yeah, look, we're having a good time. We love our jobs, but we want to be doing this full time. This is actually what we enjoy doing.
And I remember that at the time, like, there's a lot of family, like, I remember my family being like, what are you doing? You know, I'm 20, maybe 23, 24 at the time. what are you doing? Like, when are you going to sort a job out? When are you going to do it? I was like, no, this is going to work. Like, what we're doing.
What they all thought when we took them round the Wind Factory.
Yeah.
We were just
Remember my granddad and Ronnie turning up and being like, we come here and we rehearse shows and we practice. And they must have just been like, both worked in factories and engineers all their lives, being like, what are you doing? I remember my granddad just being like, yeah, if this is what you love doing, Al, you've got to stick at it. But I remember...
He's been like that
all
since
the way through. Yeah.
He still comes in now and
he always says a thing where he says, I had a crap job, I had a crap job my whole life so that you guys don't do it yourself. And he's always been like, do what you love, and I think that comes from going like, I spent my whole life doing this, don't do that. And 2, he's worked hard his whole life to give his kids the opportunities to do what they want to do. But he's been there since day one, and he like coming to events 100%. And rehearsals and things like that.
And deep down, he's creative. I mean, he loves his music. Yeah. So, and I think he was in a skiffle band back in the day, and he still goes up to his music room and sits with his headphones on, puts an album on, listens to it all the way through. And it's quite nice to go, actually, you've kept that going throughout your life. Like a lot of people let it break them down, kind of grind. And actually, he's kept that spark in him.
No, we had people come to the sort of rehearsal rooms, and I remember family being a bit like, what are you doing, Al? Why don't you get this job? Why don't you know, I remember my mum was working in the uni, and she's always pushed me to do what I want to do, but then was like, there's a job here if you want to come and do this job, or just sort of going like, you need to have some money in your back pocket. And at the time, it was just like, no, I just want to do this, And I don't think at the time we ever thought it was going to do what it did, but...
Not at all. I think we were just happy to go along with it, and we enjoyed the ride. I mean, we're still a bit like that now. We're quite like happy to try something. And
you say this on the podcast, but to everyone else we just say scatty.
Yeah, it's a bit scatty. It can be
Each day is completely different. It must drive people mad.
We have got a bit more structure, but I think what we're bad for and good for in many ways is, right, we're going to do that today, and just suddenly flip, turn of a coin, let's get a kitchen built, because we need to start doing 100%, food.
Yeah, that happened last week, which has took another 5 years off our lives. But at this time, so we moved to Hope Street, we were doing events, and we'd become an events company, and it was taking up a bit more time than it used to do. It was getting a bit more serious. And we used to come and drink down here, didn't we? Have like after rehearsals and stuff like that. And this was an afternoon tea and cocktail bar. And we used to come down and have a drink and stuff like that. And then obviously the Hope Street Theatre had opened behind. And whilst we're doing all this new theatre's opened, whilst we're doing all these shows, me and Tom are like, let's do a show. Like, let's do an actual show in a theatre. We've not done that for a very long time. So we got in contact with Adam Ward, who'd wrote a musical that Tom had seen years before, and said, this is right up our street. He's a great writer. He's moving back to Liverpool. He wants to put a show on. So we met with him. And then we ended up deciding that we were going to put on Long Jones Silver in the Hope Street Theatre. And we went big with it. We were like, we're going to build a big set. We're going to get a big team. We're going to do it properly. And the show was Long Jones Silver, it was called, and it was a satire. It was like a satirical show on how girls aren't allowed to be pirates. And it was a feminist piece about sort of tongue-in-cheek, poking fun at sort of women's rights and things like that. And it was great fun.
Yeah, it was good. I remember seeing like a draft version of it that Adam Ward had done about 3 years previous. Yeah. And going, that's really funny. He'd written all the music, written all the script, and it has that kind of, it had a pantomime edge to it. Like it was, for all intents and purposes, looked like a pantomime.
The way I describe it to people was, it wasn't like dark comedy. It was almost Simpsons-y.
Yeah.
Where it was like, sort of kids could have watched it.
Yeah.
But not. But it worked really well for adults.
Yeah. And we just had so much fun doing it. And I think what we took from the immersive events that we've been doing at Heebie Jeebies, we brought that to the rehearsal room. Yeah. So this time we had a script and it had to have a story, because that's kind of what we're basing it on. But the process of it was similar. Getting everyone together. I mean, we had a tap dancing sword fight in it.
That was honestly. So the show's obviously, like I said, it's Long Jones Silver. So the story is that Joan wants to go away with her dad, who's the best pirate in the world, and wants to go away on the boat with her, but he's not allowed to because she's not allowed to because she's a girl. So she sneaks aboard of the ship and goes away with them, and then she gets captured and taken onto a sort of rival ship, doesn't she? And she saves the day. She ends up being the person that's the most in tune, the most switched on, and she saves the day at the end of the day. And we had this moment where one of the pirates, so these two pirates had to do a duel on the ship, and we'd got this wooden dance floor, hadn't we? And we were like, we knew that the two actors in the show could tap dance, both MT trained, and we were like, right, you can both tap dance, and we've got swords. So me and Tom have no choreography experience. Ben obviously does, but it's not with tap. So I remember the day in rehearsal where we said to him, right, you're going to tap dance fight with these swords. And we went, it's going to go ta 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 bang with the swords. And they just both looked at us like, that's not how it works, lads. It's not how it works, lads. And we were like, it is.
You're fine.
And we ended up getting there, didn't we, where it was like, we knew how we wanted it to sound. So we just had to work. The two girls who were doing the show,
and we'd written a piece of music to kind of to
build tension,
it, build tension. It's like needs to fit this.
Yeah. So they were unreal at going right. Okay. So they choreographed themselves that fight / dance to the music we wanted it to be to, and it was unreal to be in that room.
There's also a lot of like nods as well back in the piece in general. You've got like. Joe, who did a lot of work with us at EBGB's, was the sound engineer on it. Then we had a lot of the cast that was in some of the shows coming back to do it. Then we had people that you were actually working at LTS at the time. Yeah. And we had people from LTS coming in to
actors
to come in. We had Adam Ward.
They were graduates, weren't they, of LTS who'd come in.
Just graduated and wanted to do something.
Yeah.
Then we had the people that, like Adam, who'd written it, who we'd seen years ago, come back and be in it, like be a part of the band, and people that, like Emily Gleaves, who we'd met doing.
She now runs the guild.
Now runs the guild. She was our stage manager.
Yeah, it was her first professional job. So these were all people that had just graduated from uni. Were all hungry. They'd trained. They were professional, but they weren't getting given a chance. And I think actually, if you look back through what will be 10 years probably soon, is that everyone we worked with had graduated and was looking for something. They were all hungry to do a project, and we were just the right place at the right time for them. Every person on that is like, I just left uni, I want a big show, I want to do a big piece. It was amazing. So that project, working with that many people, we're still super close with everyone who did that show. It was amazing, and it was in the theatre behind. It was a big sold out run. There was talks of going to Edinburgh. There was talks of doing it in Manchester and doing a sort of mini tour. And it was like, right, we're back into theatre now. We're back into theatre. And then a bar became available. And actually what we wanted, the dream that we talked about all those years before, having a pint, it was in the pipeline. Yeah. So everything else stopped.
What's hard now is like, I think we put everything that we've got into opening the bar and working at the bar and doing everything we could to create the space. And now, 5 years on, we are going, okay, well, we can be the space that starts these ideas and starts these conversations. Whether it's necessarily happens in this space or not, we can at least be part of the conversation. And I think it's important, like Graham did, like Margaret did, like everyone else that's helped us on the way up. We can now be them people,
100%.
As well as we can also now exercise our right to be creative. Yep. So I think when we get to a point with the venues that we're happy with, we can start to put more creative stuff ourselves into them rather than. So you've got a really good blend of both there.
I think that's what, especially the moral of this episode, the moral of when we go to unis and do talks, when we talk to anyone in the venues, when we go to other venues. The big thing I always say is just take risks. Take the risk. Try it out. If it doesn't work, whatever. And that comes from both sides. So like, for me and you, if we don't take the risk, if you don't go, I'm going to go and audition for that piece. And when you're still a student, I'm going to go and meet these people. If I don't go, I'm going to write this show and try and book a theatre. if we don't then go to Edinburgh, if we both then don't go and get a space at the Wind Factory, try and put shows on in Hebe's, if we don't try those things, then we don't get to that point that we've got to. But likewise for those venues, so so Matt and Tomo took a chance on us, Hebe's, Margaret. You've mentioned so many of them there.
Sorry if we've missed anyone as
well. Everyone along the way who's sort of gone, right, yeah. Graham at Hebe's just let's try it. Let's try things out. You can take risks on other people. You can believe in them as well as you can do for yourself and go, I'm going to try this out. And that's the big thing.
What was your scariest risk? I think mine was probably the Wind Factory.
Because it was the first real one, wasn't it? That was monetary.
Yeah, that was actually where spending money here to do something. Yeah. Whereas when we got the bar, should have been scarier, and I think everybody else was more scared than we were. But we just had
it was a dream, mate. It was the dream.
Riding on that confidence of youth, confidence of going. No, this does work. We have got. Yeah, it's not in the same format, but we've got experience of people working together, and
I think that first week showed. When we opened the bar, the first week of opening, every person we'd worked with in the previous 5 years together. Don't do that.
Sorry, ruined your moment.
If you're a fan of Matcha, then Tom's just doesn't get it. I think we realised, didn't we, all those people we'd worked with for the years before turned up, and whether that was helping us kit it out, whether it was just coming and having a drink and supporting. So many people turned up, and it was like, oh yeah. And I think that's a big family moment, like I'm saying, where parents have said, oh, what are you doing job-wise and things like that. I think our families all saw right, that's what they've been working on for 5 years. They know everyone. They've met
alongside everything that we were doing as well. We were doing podcasts, we were doing live filming sessions, we were doing a lot of the things that we still love to do now. Yeah. It was just all a little bit. I don't think we knew what the end goal was, and I don't think we had it in our heads.
No, I don't think we still. I don't think we still don't
now. But
it changes each day,
and that's why I think circling right back to the start of the new kind of series of this podcast was we're going to be open and honest about where we're at and what we've done and why we've done it and how it's got us where we are.
And how you can do the same thing. We were just two mates that went to uni and met Jordan and Ben and all the other guys in the Art Society at the time. We were all just mates that took chances, and we're still doing it. So you can do exactly the same. Cool. I think that's a lot this week, innit?
I'm going to call it there.
One thing we want to add, like Tom said, we're going to be open and honest about where we've been, why we did it, what we're doing now, and if you're really interested in opening a bar and running a bar, if you're really interested in putting events on, or anything creative, actors, musicians, we've got a thing called Bar Talk, and you can send questions into either of our social media platforms. You can send us an email, we'll put it all in the notes. Send us some questions and we'll answer them for you.
We get asked loads, just generally. It's called Bar Talk because obviously we are in a bar and
drinking matcha
2024. And you get this, people ask you questions all the time, but it'd be good to, if we get it in advance, break it down and really kind of think about the answers. And if there's anything, and if people are still listening an hour in or whatever we are, anything you've got, we'll answer, and we'll include it in the next podcast. And I think even for the other lads or any of the staff, we can get guests on and we can have a little open, honest discussion about it. I'm going to, just to kind of finish off the episode, I'm going to add a couple of clips in from Arts Bar Live, which is one of our filmed recording sessions that we do every other week. This is from the first episode. We had Conduit, we had Katie Nicholas, and we had Jessica Dives, all three amazing artists. Going to do a little clip on there, but if you want to see the full session, it's on our YouTube, Arts Bar Live. Is that everything from you?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week.